to another edition of the Chokeslam Wrestling Debate. I am JTH, the only thing more or less popular than a Great Khali World title run. We've got another first-round match in this tournament. We've got Ryan Payne. We have Richard Schwartz. Let's find out what both these guys think of their chances of going all the way. So let's start with our first contestant. Let's start with Ryan Payne. Ryan, I'm actually not too familiar with you in terms of your wrestling knowledge. So, what do you think you're going to bring to this this competition?
I'm going to bring? Well, that's I'd see it's kind of a hard question to ask because honestly, what I'm definitely going to bring is passion to this match. I mean, one thing clear, I love wrestling. Grew up on it from the days of WCW to the Monday Night Wars and to WWF now. What I want to bring is some attitude. I want to bring a sense of certain knowledge, but let's be honest though. We can always be wrong about something. We can always be wrong about a certain wrestler, about how many belts they've won. We can be wrong about if this wrestler worked at a certain company. But I believe I feel very confident in order to really put this match all the way through. I'm looking for a very good competitive match with my opponent.
Good words to live by. Doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, just look good when you do it. So let's go to your opponent, another person that's looking to make an impact in the wrestling competition, Richard Schwartz. You've heard what your adversary has had to say. How do you respond to that?
I'm here to have fun. I love wrestling as well. I was also huge on WCW, the Attitude Era, WWE. I'm a little bit under the weather, unfortunately, right now, so I'm going to try to bring the passion, but at the same time, make sure I don't throw up anywhere on my screen because this is my sister's laptop and she would not be very happy. She uses it for work, but I'm here to make an impact, do my best, have fun, talk some talk, walk the walk, maybe bring in some weird, obscure facts like, 1 in every 5 giraffes are illiterate. That may not be true, but it's what I'm saying right now. So, Ryan, best of luck. Let's have some fun tonight.
Well said, and I think I speak for everybody. I think we're all under the weather because I think we all saw Raw, and yeah, that's about all we got to say about that. So let's get a brief lowdown about the rules. I'm sure everybody here already knows the rules, but just for a brief docket, we have 4 main round questions, and it is the best to 3. So all 4 first round questions may not be asked, but in the case of that, if there is a tie after the first 4 round questions have been asked, we will go to a speed round. We have a answer and a winner to 3 victories. I have 2 other great judges today. I have Douglas Castle and I have Matt Graham. So without further ado, let's get into this. We're going into the first topic. As we are rolling down to the end of the 2010s era, we've had some great rivalries and feuds. We've also had some really crummy ones, but since we're more of a glass half full people, we're going to talk about the better feuds of the 2010s. So we want to ask both Ryan and Richard, what was the best feud of the 2010s era in wrestling? So we're going to start with Ryan. Ryan, whenever you are ready, you can take it away.
I guess when it comes down to the 2010s, you gotta see what feud was able to really get people invested in wrestling again. Because let's just say the WWE during the time was on a downslide with its PG rated era. So if I had to pick one feud out of the 2010s that got people back into wrestling, it's the feud between CM Punk and John Cena. This feud kicked off with CM Punk's pipe bomb. Well, even before that, the feud was there. But when CM Punk dropped his pipe bomb, it reinvigorated the passion of wrestling. And this was a smartly done feud. It wasn't these guys always throughout their early 2010s. They spaced it out, gave them different opponents, but they always came back together because these 2 worked perfectly. I'm gonna stop right here.
All right, well said. Well picked rivalry there. Let's see what Richard has to counter that with CM Punk and John Cena. Richard, what is your best feud of the 2010s?
I agree with Ryan. The feuds before the 2010s was not really established. What makes a great feud is to not only have a great feud between a wrestler and other people, other wrestlers, other wrestlers, but it also engages the audience. It also makes the audience participate. The WWE Universe, and none other than did all of these, was the feud between Daniel Bryan and The Authority. It started off in SummerSlam with Daniel Bryan winning the belt from John Cena, where then Triple H, as the referee, pedigreed him and allowed Randy Orton to cash in the Money in the Bank This feud not only established Daniel Bryan as a true superstar, but engaged the audience, engaged the audience's passion for wrestling, gave great storylines, and I'll explain more once we go into the fighting rounds.
All right, so both people have given their answers, very good answers at that. So we're going to start the 5-minute debate period. Both of our players will go back and forth, giving why they say is the better answer. So whenever somebody is ready, the 5 minutes will begin when the first person starts talking.
Well, I have to say one thing. Richard was right. It came down to a feud engaging the audience, and that's why CM Punk and John Cena engaged, because Cena, during most of the 2000s, he was the man, WWE's chosen one. When CM Punk came in the 2010s, he challenged WWE's status. He challenged their idea of who the best wrestler is, and that's why I think the audience even got more engaged, because 2000s, they lost interest in WWE. Their viewership was declining. The moment CM Punk dropped that pipe bomb, once again, people got interested in wrestling, and it's where that passion continues.
CM Punk's mic bomb was the only interesting thing about that feud. The problem, as good as CM Punk is, he is a great wrestler. I will give you that. The problem is John Cena does the same thing throughout the feud, without the thing, says the exact same thing, has the exact same wrestling moves. I can't even remember the feud half the time because John Cena and CM Punk have had so many feuds, and it basically was the same thing. Daniel Bryan was the true underdog, was for everyone acknowledging, was a B-plus player. That's what everyone assumed he was. With the last underdog we were invested in the WWE was Shawn Michaels. Daniel Bryan...
I have to disagree with that. There were other wrestlers to get invested in other than Shawn Michaels. I mean, you want to talk about a wrestler versus an authority figure. There was Bret Hart and Vince McMahon. And there was also Stone Cold versus Vince. We also had plenty of shades when it came to the Raw General Managers.
I said underdog. Stone Cold Steve Austin was not an underdog wrestler. Sorry, I'll let you go on.
When it came against Vince McMahon, Vince was the guy who had all the power. In certain wrestling matches, Stone Cold was picked as an underdog, especially when Vince was backing Undertaker, backing The Rock. He was that guy who Vince McMahon kept putting all that pressure on. And even though the authority feels just like that, another authoritarian versus a wrestler story angle. Sure, Daniel Bryan had that B-plus player thing, but before then, Daniel Bryan was once again squashed under WWE's weight, and that was when he got knocked out, lost the title in 18 seconds. What happened there? He was well into the undercard. CM Punk, he captured the championship on 2 different occasions and was still squashed
Again,
down.
that's what made my feud the best feud, is because he has been considerably squashed throughout his wrestling career in the WWE, and that was the whole point of the storyline. Whereas the Authority believed Daniel Bryan was not good enough to be a wrestler, and we had some of the greatest matches with Daniel Bryan. The Daniel Bryan-John Cena match was amazing. The Daniel Bryan versus Randy Orton, where Big Show came in and knocked them both out. The Steel Cage match, where Shawn Michaels, the special guest referee, Daniel Bryan's mentor, betrayed him. Sweet chin music. And my rivalry got the fans so into these feuds, so into the rivalry, it changed It changed the match from WrestleMania, because originally the original main event in WrestleMania was going to be Batista versus Randy Orton. The fans were so into Daniel Bryan's yes movement, so into believing in Daniel Bryan, that they forced WWE to add him in the match, and also had a fantastic match with Triple H at the first match of WrestleMania.
It wasn't just Daniel Bryan the fans were upset about. The fans also were shouting CM Punk. They were chanting him almost as loudly as Daniel Bryan. The only difference was CM Punk decided to leave because he was finally fed up. And it was then reverberates the same statements he had during his over 400-day reign as champion. He was saying, "You don't want a guy like me," and that is where looks like you want to say something. Go right ahead.
No. I'll wait till you. Okay. I was going to say, the problem with the feud is it has to be between 2 people or a group. All you've been mentioning is CM Punk. John Cena, the fans were so sick of him by this point. They're still sick of him at this point. He does the same thing. Hustle, loyalty, respect. He's supposed to be for the fans, and the fans boo him. And he's supposed to be the fan, the face of everything. And the point, they're all for CM Punk, the majority of it, and it was such a stale commentary, with the exemption of the mic bomb. And even then, WWE, CM Punk did the mic bomb too much, where even that gimmick got stale. Daniel Bryan started the yes, 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 and got everyone to do it. And the Monday Night Raw, it impacted everyone. And when he won that belt at WrestleMania, the fans, the emotion, it was considered one of the best WrestleMania matches.
Daniel Bryan did that yes thing way before it came back. First he was doing yes, then it came down to no, and then he brought back to yes again. You want to talk about a bit that was used over and over again? The yes thing was one thing. Also, Daniel kept facing Randy Orton so many times that they had to change it out to add in the Big Show for something different. With CM Punk and Cena got WWE's first 5-star match. I mean, from in almost over 10, 20 years.
Time.
Oh, time. Oh, couldn't hear that.
That's all right. That's what I'm here for. So both guys came up with some great arguments. I think it's really close so far, but we're going to go down to the final debates. We're going to start with Ryan because you kicked it off. Give out your point once and for all why you think that your choice is the best feud of this era.
CM Punk, throughout the early 2010s of his reign as champion or chasing the belt, was a representation of challenging WWE status that Daniel Bryan later inherited throughout his run. CM Punk, the moment he started his 400 reign when he was a face to a heel, he constantly kept saying, I'm the guy the company does not want to see at the top. And when we had his feuds, John Cena was the perfect person to go against because, what my opponent said, John Cena was the guy that WWE wanted, and I say that WWE wanted him as their face. Who else to get the fans more invested in this feud, to be more invested in CM Punk than John Cena himself, Mr. 5 Moves of Doom. CM Punk always getting the upper hand on him. And through CM Punk, we got introduced to probably one of the best factions, the Shield, through CM Punk because of this feud. And this definitely has reverberations down in the future to where fans are still chanting CM Punk's name because we desperately want to see him back. Daniel Bryan's already back in WWE still wrestling, but CM Punk, he is never coming back, and he has stated that loud and clear.
Take it whenever you're ready, Richard.
Okay. Problem with CM Punk versus John Cena is we've seen it before. It was Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart. Bret Hart basically had the same thing as CM Punk did with the best in the world versus best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. We've seen the same thing from CM Punk and John Cena over and over again. What we haven't seen from the Daniel Bryan versus Authority is the constant battle of a B-plus player proving that he's really an A-plus wrestler. We have seen the emotions between not only his feud with Triple H, his feud with Randy Orton, his feud with Stephanie McMahon, his feud versus the WWE management believing he was not good enough. We had a fantastic match at WrestleMania against him and Triple H. One of the best WrestleManias with Daniel Bryan versus Batista versus Randy Orton. One of the best steel cage matches with him versus Randy Orton when Shawn Michaels betrayed him. We've had the biggest interaction, fan reaction when he won the belt, when he did the yes movement. Yes, he has done it before, but never to this level. And you're talking about fans still chanting CM Punk, CM Punk. Fans are still chanting to this day, yes, yes, yes. And how did John Cena versus the CM Punk feud end? Alberto Del Rio cashed in his Money in the Bank, and he won the belt right after a fantastic match between those two, granted. But Daniel Bryan had the way better finish. He had the way better heart. And that is why the Daniel Bryan versus the Authority feud is the better feud of the 2010s.
Good arguments by both players, and I got to say, I think it's still pretty even to me. But let's go to our first judge of this debate. We're going to start with Matt. Matt, where do you stand on this?
Wow, this was definitely, in a wrestling term, a slobber knocker. I was on the fence most of this time. One of the combatants would say one thing, and then I would go on his side. Then Ryan or Richard would come back with something, and I was on. And then they got to their closing. Ryan started bringing up points of, well, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. But I think it was a little late for that. So I think Richard gets my point because he described the various feuds that were aligned with the Authority.
Interesting. So we got one for Richard so far. Now let's go to Doug. Doug, where do you stand? Do you agree with Matt on this one?
After listening to each one bring the argument to the table, I heard a little bit more from Ryan as to why his feud, was more impactful to the wrestling organization as a whole. So Ryan's actually going to get my point.
All right, interesting. So it comes down to me, and yeah, I was really torn about this pretty much the entire way. Both of you came up with some great arguments. You kind of came up with some good counter arguments on both sides. Both of you kind of basically said we had kind of seen it. It was kind of a remold of past feuds from the past, which I guess that makes sense. Past is past. So ultimately, what it came down to me is what was the more embraceable feud. And I think there were a couple more points from Richard's side that kind of put that home when he was talking about how the Authority would always push Daniel Bryan down. He would always come back up, and the fans would rally with the fans when it comes to Cena and Punk. It wasn't really the stomp down to John that there was kind of with the Authority, because the Authority was mortally hated regardless of how people felt about Cena. I mean, it was just completely, everyone hated Hunter, they hated Stephanie, everything they stood for, and everybody knew that Daniel Bryan should have been the guy. They tried to push Batista, which made no sense. So those were points that I think Richard made very clear in his argument, saying that we wanted Bryan. So ultimately, I'm going to give that point to Richard, but it was very, very close. So Richard gets the first point, but don't hang your head, Ryan. That was a really good argument on both of you. It could have gone either way. We now go to the second question, and just a brief reminder, at any point, both of you can use a 1-minute extension on either your opening or closing arguments if you feel that you need it. But with that being said, let's go to the second question in this. One of the other big feuds that has happened in this era, kind of surprisingly that was not brought up, was the Kenny Omega-Okada feud that has been taking place in New Japan. And all the matches are pretty much the same. They're over an hour plus long. Meltzer gives them 26.5 stars apiece. So it's kind of hard to all, differentiate which match is truly the best. But we're going to let our contestants try to convince us what is the best Kenny Omega-Okada match. And since we started with Ryan in the first question, we're going to start with Richard in this question. So what is the best Omega-Okada match whenever you are ready?
There were 5 sets of matches in the Kenny versus Okada matches throughout the years, and all 5 of them were great. They were spectacular. The one I am choosing is the Kenny versus Okada Dominion match year 2018. It was the best 2 out of 3 fall match. It was a fantastic match all the way through. Both sides were not giving up an inch. You had Okada with the first victory, Omega with the second victory, and it all came down to the final fall, where finally Kenny Omega defeated Okada for the New Japan World Heavyweight belt. And I'll explain why this one was the better of the matches in a moment.
All right. Well said. Ryan, whenever you're ready, what was your favorite and best Omega-Okada match?
These two men showed exactly what happens when you put on wrestling clinics every time when they fought each other. For me, it could have gone either way with part of these matches, but I decided to choose Omega versus Okada in Dominion 2017. This was when Kenny Omega had finally established himself as a leader of the Bullet Club when they got Cody, when they got the Young Bucks. Cody had just became the first ever IWGP US champion. So he was going into this match, either he'd come out wearing both belts and defeating Okada's year-long streak. And Okada had a lot to lose in this match. And these two definitely put on a barn burner here, where it ended not where neither man came out on top. They ended in a draw, which upped the feud from there. So I'm going to continue more later on.
Okay, good arguments by both players. Obviously, when it comes to similar matches of Omega-Okada, it's going to be very interesting to see what both of our players are going to come up with that will differentiate from the other person's match. So whenever you're ready, the 5 minutes will start when the first person starts talking.
Look, Okada and Omega in Dominion 2018 was a great match and was a great capper to what was their rivalry. But 2017 is the thing that upped the rivalry because before Dominion, Okada chose Omega as his opponent because he needed to prove something. Because before going in 2018, they were 1-1-1. The time limit draw from 2017 is the reason why Okada wanted to prove something going into this match. I mean, Kenny also had a lot to prove as well, but looking at from where these two men were stacked, Okada had more to lose and Kenny had a lot to gain.
As much as your match was fun to watch, is great. The problem with your match's main problem was the fact that the Bullet Club were out there. It was distracting for the fans because everyone was expecting the Bullet Club to come in and, start maybe interfering. And it kind of took away from the work that Omega and Okada were doing at the time because everyone was focused on the Young Bucks who were out there on ringside. And then later on when Cody came to the ringside, they were more focused on the Bullet Club than they were on the actual match. Whereas my match, it was just them. They were fighting on one-on-one. There were no other factions out there, and they were going out it throughout.
Around that time in their match, Kenny had just split up but was booted out of the Bullet Club, and it was him and Ibushi as the Golden Lovers. He was having his little spat with the Young Bucks. The Bullet Club did not come out until later on to the match where Cody felt that he needed to protect his friend. That added a little bit of drama to the match. And there have been New Japan matches where factions have surrounded the ring and nothing has happened. This match, all it did was to prove can Kenny go the distance against Okada, who was undefeated, who going into a year-long match, who had the belt for over a year.
In my match, Kenny Omega had to prove that he did not need the Bullet Club to become champion, that he could defeat Okada without the Bullet Club, and that's exactly what he did in my match. Our match went for 70 long, forever, freaking with amazing stuff that they did. They did acrobatics, technical ring work. It was a gruesome 101, whereas your match ended in a draw. Now, some people may say that's a great thing. I think it is a turn down. When you have a great one-on-one match and ends in a draw, it just feels like both people lost. And that's the reaction that fans do. A lot of fans have taken. It's the fact that it ended in draw.
It might feel that way to you, but a match going to the time limit does remind people that these matches are not just they don't go on forever. They don't continue on until the referee calls for the match. The fact that there is a time limit reminds people that these wrestlers, they are not superhuman. These guys they're limited. They're not superheroes. They can tire out. There was portions in the 2017 Dominion that came back in 2018, Okada's body, giving out on him. Kenny, who nearly tired himself out, to what brought out Cody and the Bullet Club. It's because Okada and Kenny were doing the psychological point of this match because these two were 1-1 over each other. These two wanted that win so badly, they didn't want to be
But the point of the draw, it really faced, because one of the greatest matches of all time was Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania, the 60-man iron match that went into a draw, but they extended it to an hour, which became a fantastic match. It is still remembered to this day. And having just
that was a
match that is a draw, and like they said, no one wins. It's a total letdown. And also, your match was actually, believe, if I may be mistaken, was one of the shortest matches. My match had everything your match had, and it had it more. It had a decisive winner. It could have gone either way. The fans were cheering a lot louder in my match than yours.
The reason why that 2 out of 3 falls was there because they did not want a repeat of the 2017. The 2017 added drama to it because Okada, he did not want to draw because the draw was put there. It puts that nugget in Okada's head that match against Kenny was not a proper defense. It kept eating away at him to where it fueled him to pick Kenny. Sure, it went over an hour itself, but that Dominion match was still a high-rated 5-star match because of what these two men were able to do, fast-paced, putting on a lot of technical marvel masterpieces within that limited time.
You brought the fact that your match was 5 stars, which is great, but my match was 7 stars. It was way more acclaimed than your match was. Like I said, everything your match had, mine had, and so much more. It had anticipation. It had momentum. It had everything that you want in a match, and it finally gave a satisfying ending for the fans because Omega finally defeated Okada. Finally won that belt. He finally
Time.
achieved greatness.
You say time?
Yes.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right.
these
So,
segments go by quick.
yes, they do.
It does.
So, it's been a neck and neck match so far with this debate. We got our first, 7 stars out of 5, which I still don't know how it makes any sense. But it's coming down to the closing arguments. Richard, you kicked off this debate, and we'll let you begin the closing arguments whenever you are ready.
Omega Okada Dominion 2018 was the best match because it put everything that Omega and Okada had faced off 1-1, 2-3 falls to just clearly decide who was the better man. As much as entertaining match Dominion 2017 was, there wasn't really as much focus on Omega and Okada as there was focus on them and the Bullet Club and Cody. There was way too much focus on the outside where not enough focus on the actual wrestlers, whereas mine had focus on the wrestlers. It was just a one-on-one, mano-a-mano, had epic conclusions. It had amazing turnabout. Everything that his match had, mine had, and like I said, so much more, because it had the intensity. You think, oh, Kai's going to win. No, Omega's going to come back and win. It went toe-to-toe. You had acrobatics. You had technicians. You had finishers all over the place. Everyone was on their feet by the end of this match, and this is why Omega Okada Dominion 2018 is the best out of the 5 matches that they had.
Ryan, take it away whenever you're ready.
Okada and Kenny 2018 at Dominion would not have happened if that draw from 2017 Dominion did not take place. It may have been a shorter match, but within that shorter match, this was all about psychology of these two men trying to put each other out. And also, they did have a match at Wrestle Kingdom in that same year where Okada came out on top. So Kenny went in there to prove a point. He went in there to prove that not only can he beat Okada, but he can become the first non-Japanese wrestler to hold 2 belts simultaneously in the company. And the Bullet Club there, they came out later because it was there to elevate the drama. And that time limit definitely proved, because Okada and Kenny were trying to put each other out so that, you want to talk about finishers? Okada and Kenny kept doing rainmakers, V-triggers, all constantly on each other throughout the final 5-minute stretch of that match, to where when Okada wanted to make that pin, the time ran out. Just like that. Okada could have had it, but it came this close to it where it laid a nugget in his head to where he wanted to beat Kenny. He wanted to finally prove and solidify himself as the best IWGP heavyweight champion. I'm going to stop there.
All right, that was great arguments by both players. Again, I think this is pretty neck and neck. For a moment, I thought I had a winner, and then the closing arguments kind of narrowed it back to kind of neck and neck again. We're going to start with Doug on this one. Doug, where do you stand on this?
So when it came down to it, what won me over is the decision of a verdict. I know when it comes to when I used to love watching wrestling, I used to love knowing who won the match. I hated draws. And I think the person that argued best for why their match was more superior was Richard.
All right. Kind of felt your pain there for a second. You were trying to figure out which R name to say for a second. You had me worried that you were going to pick the wrong person after that. I'm going to go next. I was actually siding with Richard there for a while, but I actually did like Ryan's closing argument a lot, even though he did bring up the fact that, it was a draw and all that. But the thing with me about the 2 out of 3 falls match, and it's something that me personally I felt when it came to the match too, is when you have a match like that goes that long and it's 2 out of 3 falls, sometimes it's hard to get invested into the match until the 3rd fall actually happens. So you're just going, all right, come on, let's, get on with this now. So it kind of, for me, there were moments where I was just sitting there waiting until the 3rd fall started, and then once it picked up, it did. When it came to Ryan's choice, the fact that there was a time limit. You knew at some point you would have thought there was going to be a winner. And the biggest shock of that, as Ryan pointed out, is that there wasn't a winner, which is something that we don't hardly ever see in wrestling anymore. That was almost the curveball of the match. And I like the fact that Ryan did do a great job pointing that out because of the fact that it's so rare nowadays in wrestling to see draws. So I gave the slight edge to Ryan. So again, it's 1-1. So it's going to come down to Matt. Matt, who do you have in this Omega Okada debate?
Well, I'm taking somebody who picked Dominion. Oh, wait. Sorry, had to go there. This was really hard. I mean, I hate to say it, but I agree with Doug. I like a match when you've got the decisive winner, because something he said is, yes, Ryan's had a time limit and they timed out, but with Richards, it finally happened. It took so long to get to the point, but Kenny did it. He won the match. So I just barely going to give Richard the point. I mean, I like I said, this was to the last word.
Go ahead, be like Meltzer. Give it 26.5 stars out of 5, which still doesn't make any sense to me. But
I was gonna go 27.5 just to one up.
Oh, God dang it! What? I'm still
I'm gonna be the heel.
I'm still waiting for that day where we're gonna get a 27-star match. Well, Ryan, I'm sorry, I fought for you there. That was a really good argument there. I think you brought everything you could for that. But with that, Richard does take a 2-0 lead. So if Richard does get another point, this will become a knockout victory before we go to speed round. So the third question is, obviously we now have the resurgence of the AEW. They've had some great shows that they put on, and obviously one of the bigger shocks that has happened is the number of well-known former WWE stars that have shown up. So we have asked both of our competitors which WWE star is likely to jump to AEW next, following the likes of a Ty Dillinger and a Dean Ambrose. We're going to go back to Ryan on this one. Ryan, who is your choice for the next WWE jumpy?
When Jon Moxley showed up at Double or Nothing, and in the interviews that followed, he talked about how frustrated he was with the creative process and how he was booked, how they kept mishandling his character every now and then. And the superstar I thought who represented, at least was a fraction of that, was Cesaro. When Cesaro showed up, he was given this massive mid-card push to be this Swiss Army man. And when he won the Andre the Battle, and when he won at WrestleMania 20 in that Battle Royal, his star could not have been higher. But WWE seemed to flub him, and ever since then, he has been frustrated with creativity to where in the first draft, he did talk about he would prefer to be on SmackDown than Raw. And even now, he's still being flubbed. But I'm going to stop here so I can continue more in the debate.
All right, so Ryan has chosen the Swiss Army man as Cesaro. Who is Richard going to have to counter?
I chose a superstar who not only revolutionized the women's division, was one of the main reasons the women revolution started, and it is Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks has been one of the most dominant, well-rounded diva female wrestlers that we have ever had. She has the mic skills. She has the in-ring skills. She has the charisma. And what they have been done to her has been so disgraceful that she hasn't even come back since WrestleMania. And I'll continue more on when we get to the fighting.
Well, you're not going to have to wait much longer because the fighting will begin when when someone starts talking.
Okay, the problem with Cesaro is he's a great wrestler. I'll give you that. However, his mic skills are terrible. It's getting better, but he is still nowhere ready to be the spotlight yet, because you need ring ability, charisma, and mic to be one of the top dogs in the wrestling industry.
For charisma might be one thing, but WWE has shown in the past they're willing to push guys who are not that great talking on the mic. I mean, let's talk about every time Vince wants to bring a big guy in, he either has some manager attached to them to speak for them, or he has them talking less. Cesaro has great ring ability. He's able to do storytelling in a match. I chose him because from NXT, he had great feuds against Adrian Neville, Sami Zayn, early guys who got brought to the WWE. And even then, since the time from NXT, he was mishandled, floundered, flubbed to where he mainly had only a U.S. belt around his waist. When he finally got that WrestleMania moment, like I said, his star was at a point that they could have been pushing. Instead, they chose not to push him. They relegated him. What?
Oh, sorry. No. I was wait till you finish your thought. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, they drag him down to where he has stated publicly he has been displeased by how they're treating him. Sure, he got some success back in tag team, but the bar could not happen because, let's be honest, they didn't do well booking him and Sheamus in matches. I would not have been surprised if he left there to be part of the Indies.
Cesaro's personality gotten so much better because of the bar. The only reason why Cesaro's solo right now is because Sheamus can no longer wrestle. He was permanently injured. He's probably never wrestling again. And right now, Cesaro is going to be Aleister Black in the next pay-per-view. That is going to be a great match. And Cesaro is enjoying his time right now in the WWE. He's had multiple tag team belts, multiple championships where he's had it for a while. Sasha Banks versus Bayley was one of the best.
He was at the same accommodations. He was a multiple tag team
Sasha
champion.
Banks had
a belt, but he was displeased with creative, and Cesaro has been displeased with creative. Sasha, she is a good choice. I agree with you, but the fact that she has not come back hurts her because WWE can do whatever to her contract. They can extend her contract even more without her responding back to them.
No,
and the
they
fact
can't do
that
that. They have to have her physical signature to extend a contract. You cannot do that. Sasha
there
Banks
have been wrestlers in the past talked about
Sasha
they want
Banks
to
and
get their
Bayley-
ass walked with them.
Okay. Sasha Banks' Bayley's was one of the best NXT main event matches of all time. Sasha Banks is great on the mic, great at wrestling, great charisma. She had the women's wrestling belt twice and lost it within a month or a few weeks to Charlotte Flair. She has been to the point where every time she gets pushed back, she gets dropped the F down because Charlotte Flair, they were focused on Charlotte Flair. Sasha Banks finally got one of the tag team belts, only had it for about a month until they lost it to the Iconics. She is frustrated. That's why she is not appeared, and that's why she's more likely to go to AEW than Cesaro. Because Cesaro right now is enjoying his time in WWE. He had a great tag run with the bar. He had a great tag run with Zack Swagger.
Just like Moxley did. Every wrestler who can let's go with this whole thing where Sasha goes to AEW. Let's just say she had maybe good matches in WWE only against Charlotte and Bayley alone. Every other wrestler they pit her against, she's had to really kill herself to put them over. Let's say she doesn't gel well with Nia. She doesn't gel with Bayley. And that's hard because they do great in NXT, but on the main roster, those two don't gel well. Cesaro, he gels well with people in the ring. Sure, he might get himself hurt, but every now and then he got wrestling tape on, he gets back in the ring to fight. That's why I think when it comes to establishing a mid-card for AEW, Cesaro is that guy to build around. And so finally, when he is comfortable with that company, they can start pushing him in matches against Omega. They can put him against Cody in old school fashioned wrestling matches.
Sorry, I say the problem with Cesaro again is his mic skills. Like, he's had great matches, yes, because he's faced against the right people who can sell Cesaro to it. But some of the matches that he's had with people who not necessarily great, it wasn't great matches. To be a face of a company, to be a face of a wrestler, you need aspects of all three, and Cesaro does not have it. That's why he hasn't left WWE, because he is working on it. He is getting better, but he's not at the moment at the point. And he's already extended his contract. Sasha Banks hasn't extended her contract yet. Cesaro's going to still be there for a while. He's got a new contract.
Once again, I'm not saying they need to be a face. They just need to be a part to build the roster of AEW. Cesaro can still improve on his mic skills when he's part of AEW. I'm not trying to look for some big name person like Moxie. I'm picking a wrestler who can build a division, who can build other wrestlers coming in.
All right. That was the 5 minutes. I liked both arguments on both sides. You both brought some really good points to both sides. Ryan, whenever you're ready, you can just go ahead.
right now, AEW just needs to take wrestlers that they can build a roster around right now. Let's just say they can't always focus, the Bucks and Cody can't always focus matches on themselves. They need wrestlers who they know can draw in a crowd. And Cesaro has proved in the past he can draw in a crowd with his ring ability. He can still work at AEW and improve on his mic skills. He doesn't need to be a smooth talker, but all he needs to do is be that wrestler who can bring intensity. He can just drop in a line every now and then to trash talk. Cesaro has shown against wrestlers like Roman, against Sheamus, against Dean Ambrose, against Seth Rollins, he can put on those clinic matches that AEW wants to build. He's a versatile athlete, and I think he can actually bring not only a mixture of hard hitting, but also some old school classic wrestling, mat ability, technical style that Cody likes to do. After you've seen his matches at Double or Nothing and Fyter Fest. That's it.
All right, Richard, whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
The question is, who is most likely from WWE to go to AEW? And right now, Cesaro has extended his contract. So Sasha Banks has not. Cesaro, as great wrestler he is, he doesn't really have great charisma. He doesn't have great mic skills, and that's what it takes to be a top dog in this industry. And some of his matches Cesaro's been in hasn't been great. Sasha Banks has all three. She has had some of the most amazing women's matches of all time. She's only been the champion like twice and lost the belt twice to Charlotte Flair within a week or a couple weeks. She had a tag team run for about a month. Cesaro has at least had self-reigning tag team champions. He was a tag team champion with Sheamus for a very long time. He had great chemistry with Sheamus. He had great chemistry with Jack Swagger with We the People. He is currently happy with where he is right now. Right now, he is not a superstar that can go on to, let's say, AEW and handle himself against Cody or Omega because they are top dogs. They have the three things that Sasha Banks has that some of the greats possibly have. Cesaro, as talented as he is, still has a long way to go before he can even go to AEW. So that's why Sasha Banks, being screwed left and right, doesn't re-up her contract, will go to AEW quicker than Cesaro will.
All right, good arguments by both players. I'm going to start off this one. I liked both sides of this. I like that Richard did actually, play into the actual question who was more likely to do it, which I do agree with that part. It is definitely more likely to be Sasha. When it came to the actual arguments itself, Richard kept pointing up about the he's not a main event player, but Ryan did adamantly time and time again say that it's not. He doesn't need to be a main event star. He can be, in the mid card and establish himself. You don't need the mic skills to be in the mid card. So I do like that Ryan did emphatically say that it main event, mid card, it doesn't really matter as long as he can establish himself in there. So, and with those arguments, I really like that Ryan pushed those points home. And Richard, gave his side of counter arguments, but I don't think he really attacked the problems that Ryan's arguments were presenting. He was kind of trying to attack something different, where Ryan was trying to pinpoint something and did a good job of pinpointing what he needed to do. So I'm going to give that point to Ryan. So with that, it's 1-0 in favor of Ryan, but we're going to go to Matt next. Matt, who do you side on this argument?
I like the fact that Richard brought up the fact that who is most likely to go to AEW. But I agree. I like the fact that Ryan said, look, you don't have to be, looking at AEW right now, you don't have to be Kenny Omega or the Young Bucks or even Joey Janela. You can be somebody that easily is in the buy-in because you've got to fill a roster. You can't just have, let's do Dustin versus Cody again. Let's do the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers again. You've got people that are like, Jesus, what is his name? You've got people like Moxley, who's going to be the death match. You've got your headliners, but you need people to if when they go to TV to fill the 2-hour gap. You've got, your main stars, but you've got even squash matches to begin with. So I agree. Ryan definitely gets this point.
All right, so it's in favor of 2-0. Ryan will get the point on that one. It was a good argument by Richard. It is now 2-1 in favor of Richard, so he wasn't able to get the 3-round knockout there, but he's got another chance to close it here. So with that said, let's go to our fourth and final main round question. So let's go back to the time of the wheel and the caveman, and let's go back to the days of the NWA, or the National Wrestling Alliance, for those of you that don't remember. So it's a pretty straightforward question. Who is the best NWA champion of all time? So let's start with Richard. Richard, who is your choice for the best NWA champion?
Question is, who is the best NWA champion? Who alone has set the tone? Who has set the ages? Who have brought wrestlers who want to embody this superstar? And I chose the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, limousine riding, jet flying son of a gun, the Nature Boy Ric Flair. He was an 8-time NWA champion, an all-around 16-time world champion in total, 8 times with NWA, 2 times in WWF, 6 times in WCW. He screams personification and wrestling. He has the mic skills, the charisma, the wrestling skills. When you think of NWA wrestling, you think of the Nature Boy Ric Flair.
I am so shocked that somebody picked Ric Flair for this debate. So, Ryan, it's a tall task. You're going up against one of the GOATs of all time. But who have you picked for your choice for greatest NWA champion of all time?
The NWA, they had a multitude of NWA heavyweight champions you could be proud of way before Ric Flair established himself there. And even then, Ric Flair had to establish himself against wrestlers that need to prove, not only test his mettle as a champion, but also test themselves as wrestlers. And when it comes to the hardest working wrestlers in NWA, as I can think of, there's nobody other than Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes, you want to talk about multiple championships. When he was in NWA, he won different heavyweight champions, not just their national championship. He won a championship they established in Georgia, Florida, and Missouri. He's won different tag team belts in the different regions that NWA was a part of. This is a man who didn't have the superstar look that Ric Flair had, but what he did have was that charisma, that energy to get the crowd going. I'm going to stop here because I know we're going to get into it heavily in the debate.
Indeed, we are. So it's the classic rivalry. It's Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes. The flashy, guy that everybody dreams to be versus the son of a plumber. So 5 minutes will start when the first person starts speaking.
Well, one thing Richard and I know, both of our men have charisma. These men can drive a crowd crazy just from their styles, from their personalities in general. But honestly, for me, I think that Dusty Rhodes, he is a hardworking guy. And I'm not going to say name change hardworking either. But the fact that Dusty Rhodes has 4 different types of NWA heavyweight division belts in 4 different states under that company says a lot.
Ric Flair is the 8-time NWA champion. He was the face of the NWA. He defeated Dusty Rhodes to win his first NWA, and he was the last person to hold that NWA title before it was vacated. Ric Flair is one of the best heels of all time. He was one of the best faces of all times. The fans loved him. The fans cheered for him when he was a face. They booed him as hell when he was a heel. Dusty Rhodes tried to go heel. It didn't work out. Dusty Rhodes is a hard worker. I admit. I agree with you on that. He does have charisma. However, his ring skills weren't that great. He was a big guy. Like you said, he didn't have the look. He didn't like his matches were fun and good. One of his best matches was against Ric Flair because Ric Flair did a great job to help make that match great.
It says something that you choose that he gets Dusty Rhodes' first title. It shows that Ric Flair, yes, he does his good putting over wrestling opponents. But the fact that he and Dusty have memorable feuds in that company for the heavyweight belt does say something to their characters alone. Dusty when it comes down to his ring style, he was a good striker, and his size, he was able to use his size on advantages when it came to technical mat abilities. When either against Ric Flair, against Ricky Steamboat, either if it was against, oh wait, Junkyard Dog wasn't part of that, or I could be wrong. But as I've mentioned, he did choose. He learned a lot in NWA to the skills that he carried on to the WWF. He chose to remain with them for 10 plus years to pick up the skills.
Do you want to know how hardworking Ric Flair was? He survived a plane crash. He suffered a back injury where the doctors told him he may never wrestle again. He told him, no, I'm going to wrestle. And he came back a year later to become one of the greatest faces of all times. He formed one of the most memorable factions of all time, the Four Horsemen.
Four Horsemen.
And no offense, as fun as Dusty Rhodes is, if it wasn't for his son Dustin Rhodes, aka Goldust, and Cody Rhodes, he may not be remembered to this day because of his sons. Everyone knows Ric Flair. Everyone knows Woo, and the Rolex wearing, diamond wearing.
You want to talk about Dusty? When Dusty had the energy and everything he had, he carried on to the WWF to where they tried to bury him with giving him polka dots. Dusty took that silly thing that Vince McMahon gave him and he ran with it. He's just a common man. The fact that he's able to go on talking, doing all these promo styles with this little list he's got going and talking about that, baby, he knew exactly how to work a microphone. And he learned how to be a good booker as well. To
anything that Dustin Rhodes can do, Ric Flair can do it 3 times better. He has worked up to his late 70s, in matches. He was still going on. And yes, I'm not saying Dusty Rhodes wasn't a memorable wrestler. I did say at one point he wasn't. And he technically isn't. But again, Dustin and Cody Rhodes helped form American Dream.
His children. He was able to mentor and help a lot of other wrestlers. When he was a booker in WCW, he helped.
Okay, we're actually getting off. We are getting off topic. We are supposed to be talking about the best NWA champion, and there is no one other. I'm saying sorry. I'll let you finish.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying we're talking about the best NWA champion of all time, and that is Ric Flair. He was the face practically throughout the majority of the NWA franchise. He won 8 times to where Dusty Rhodes only won the belt 3 times. And as much fun as
he won belts in other divisions that NWA was under. NWA Florida champion, and he held in that state. He works well in teams in the NWA division to where he has been not just nationally, like under the banner, as I've mentioned, in 3 different states, Florida, Missouri, and Georgia, to where he's captured singles and tag teams.
I'm saying Ric Flair has also won multiple championships besides the heavyweight. I'm just talking about the heavyweight championships because Ric Flair also won multiple belts in the NWA as well.
Yes. But the NWA at that time, they were spread out amongst different territories. They weren't just regulated to their main headquarters. Like I said, they had wrestling division counties in Florida, in Georgia, and Missouri. Those were high.
Name a memorable quote from Dusty Rhodes. Name a memorable quote right now.
Time. Sorry, you won't get a chance to. Boy, that was unfortunate timing there. You had a chance, but I just snatched it away. So. In the great words of Dusty Rhodes, these guys went to wall. They went to wall. I never understood why he always said he wanted to go to wall. I don't know why he really would want to wall. But so we're going down to the closing arguments. This could be the game if the arguments and the closing arguments go the right way. Richard, you kicked off this argument, so we will start off with you whenever you're ready.
I would like to use my minute closing.
Go right ahead.
Look, Dusty Rhodes was a fun wrestler. He was entertaining, but he wasn't the greatest wrestler in the ring. He wasn't like his charisma was fun. It wasn't the greatest like Ric Flair. He didn't have the mic skills like Ric Flair does. He didn't have the ring skills like Ric Flair does. Everyone knows the Woo! Everyone knows the Four Horsemen. Everyone knows his Rolex wearing, diamond ring slinging, kiss stealing, limousine riding, just jet flying son of a gun. There is nothing memorable of the exception of Cody Rhodes and Goldust of Dusty Rhodes' quotes. As great as he is, as fun as he is, Ric Flair was the face of the NWA. When he was a heel, he got booed by the fans. He played the heel part with a passion. When he was the face, the fans cheered for him. Ongoing reaction that Ric Flair, the personification, the charisma, the ring skills, the mic skills. Ric Flair has it all. When you think of NWA, you think of the Nature Boy, Ric Flair.
All right.
And in a minute.
Yeah, he asked for that minute extension, and he went a minute. So,
But before I want to use my minute extension as well.
and you can go right ahead too.
You want to talk about Dusty Rhodes' legacy with his children? Dusty Rhodes had a legacy that wasn't just to Dustin and Cody. He inspired and helped many wrestlers. But when I go back to NWA, it is there in NWA, his early career, he built himself. He learned every trick and trade he needed to know about that business. He wanted to talk. Richard talks about Flair and how he was a heel and was booted as a face. Flair preferred being more of a heel. And sure, Dusty had his times as a heel and failed. But the fact that Flair was such a bad heel, it made Dusty even better as a face, as that person to go up against Flair. Dusty's energy and charisma that he learned from NWA picked up in the ring. Whenever he started dancing in that ring, when he started to pick up that momentum, the people went behind him. He had a great energy, a great life to him that made you want to enjoy wrestling every time you saw a match with Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes made you enjoy wrestling. Even before it got big on television, you need a reason why to get people in certain states and certain cities and towns to watch wrestling. And Dusty Rhodes was somebody you wanted to watch wrestle. Sure, if you wanted to go there and boo Flair or cheer him, fine. But if you wanted someone to get you invested, that was Dusty Rhodes through and through. He was such a hardcore company guy that I not mentioned. He not only worked well in singles, he worked well in teams. He, as I've mentioned, he has built himself a career off of everything he's learned in NWA. And when it comes to NWA, sure, you might think of Ric Flair, but I guarantee you there are some out there that do think of Dusty Rhodes.
All right. So both players have made their closing arguments. Really
This
good
was
arguments
fun.
on both.
Yeah, the moment
It
you
was
picked Ric
fun.
Flair, I knew I had to punch as hard as I could.
All right, so it's time for the judges to make the decision, and I wasn't sure if Matt was there, but now that I see that he is, we're going to start with you. Who is your choice on this debate?
Oh, this was a tough one. Man, they both had amazing arguments for each of their people. But I just think Richard, during the 5-minute debate, brought up more points of why Ric Flair was the better of the two, and Ryan just really didn't counter that. He started to explain why in his closing, but I think that was a little too late. So I think I have to go with Richard on this one. And just for that, woo! All
right, so lesson learned. Apparently, woo is all it takes to win a debate nowadays. So Doug, let's go to you. If you agree with Matt and you side with Richard, this match will be officially be done. Do you agree with the first judge's ruling?
Yes, I do agree with the first judge's ruling. I'm losing my voice. I can't even do the will. Basically, I just felt like he overall talked more about what made Flair a better all-around wrestler. Ryan pointed out a few things, but I didn't hear enough to point him over, everything that Richard was saying about Ric Flair.
And with that, that is unfortunately the match. Richard will take this match by a score of 3-1. No speed round is necessary. So, Richard, congratulations on your victory. You will now advance to play either Harley Borg or Malcolm Lay, whoever that may be. We don't know yet. So, what words do you have to say for either one of those competitors?
I mean, it's going to be a tough match. Harley and both Malcolm know their stuff in wrestling. Ryan knows his stuff in wrestling. Ryan was a hell of a opponent. Thank you so much for playing against me. I do agree, we were going way off topic with NWA, but I think it's really hard when we both have two charismatic people we are fighting for, and also have to talk about NWA Championship, which we probably weren't around back then for it, or we don't really remember too much of it when it happened. But he was a hell of an opponent, hell of a competitor. I hope I get to face him again in this league. it was a very fun match, and I look forward to my next opponent, whoever it would be, maybe.
Well said, and I couldn't agree more. So, Ryan, unfortunately, you came up a little bit short there. Obviously, you had some tough answers that you had to debate against, but I think I speak for everybody here. You are definitely no slouch in this wrestling competition, and I definitely think that wins will come your way if you choose to come back. So, what do you have to think about? What do you have to say about your performance?
Well, I mean, apparently people prefer an absolute victor than a draw that, furthers a storyline. But that's just me. No, but for real, I would have to say, yeah, this was a good match. Richard, I do agree with Richard. We did go off topic a bit. The only matches I could find with Dusty Rhodes was only 5-minute matches that didn't really tell me a lot. And when it came to him as a champion, only him as a wrestler, yes. I do look forward to hopefully getting an opportunity. I mean, I like the range of questions that was here. Nothing was limited to one company. Nothing was limited to one era of wrestling. We went off the board here, and the fact that me and Richard were able to get split decisions almost every time just says, like I said, almost, just for the first two. After that, it was just, landslide or landslide. But I'm just glad, because ever since maybe like my first win in Battleground, I've had nothing but knockout losses or losses by 1 point. So the fact that I've not knocked out here, I'm happy. But this is just something for me to pick myself back up, maybe start looking at a bit more logical, and definitely bring out a few more facts to circle my argument around.
Well said, and I speak again, as I said before, I speak for everybody here. It was a pleasure to have you on here, and definitely look forward to having you back. And for everybody out there, this Chokeslam Wrestling Debate apparently was sponsored by Starbucks, because that's where Ryan is right now. So enjoy your millions and millions of cups of coffee from Starbucks. It tastes great. So we're going to close this out. Let's go to our winner first. Richard, where can the good people find you on social media?
They can find me on Facebook under Richard Schwartz. You can find me on YouTube and Twitter under External Void, where I do WWE Champions Mobile Gaming. And you can find me driving around LA because I got nothing better else to do.
Well said. Ryan, same to you. Where can the good people find you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Ryan Payne. Every now and then, you can find me on the Pro Wrestling Broadcast, where I do every now and then I throw in my 2 cents on WWE's on Raw, SmackDown. I am looking forward to giving out predictions to Fight for the Fallen and Extreme Rules. So I'm going to be, I'm not done with wrestling. I got a lot to book up for.
And we can find you in a Starbucks, too. I'm a little disappointed you didn't start with that. But be that as it may. Let's go to our other judges first. Matt, where can the good people find you?
You can find me on Facebook at Matt Graham. You can find myself and my DJ partner on SoundCloud and Mixcloud at DJ Carmageddon. You can also find our tag team DJing under KT-Virus on Facebook.
Alrighty. Also, same thing to our other judge that was great to show up kind of last minute, so we appreciate him showing up. Doug, where can the good people find you?
Absolutely. Commissioning all the great leagues that I've been a part of, which I'm excited for. In Nerd Fights, in Game Zones, so check those out as well as all the other tournaments. My throat is going away, and I'm sorry for the crappiness.
Oh, I know all too well about crappiness because that is what I is. And everybody.
That's what she said.
I don't even know a she. I don't even know what you're talking about. The good people on social media can find me at WWEJTH1. Don't question why I still have WWE on my Twitter use. I try to completely disassociate myself with that wretched company as we speak. But you can find me on YouTube JTH. I do a bunch of reactions on that channel. So, on behalf of all of our great judges and great players, I'm JTH. Thank you for watching this edition of the Chokeslam Wrestling Debate. And on behalf of everybody, we all bid you adieu.